So I'm doing that like every single day, and history and just writing subjects in general. That's probably a skill issue. If you're an IGCSE student on your spring break right now, then we're probably in the same boat of trying to lock in as much as we can. And so in this video, I'm going to be splitting it into two parts and talking about what study tips that actually worked for me versus what didn't. I'm going to be so completely honest in this video and just spill everything. For some context, I'm taking 11 courses. Technically, 10 because I already took one of them. If you really think about it, it's technically only 9 exams because one of them is art. So I don't actually have to study for it, but there's still a lot of time that has to be put into like working on art. So I'm gonna count that as 10 subjects. And my earliest exam, so I was going through my schedule today, and it starts in 23 days. And the last one is in like 2 months. So it's really good that I had these 2 weeks to really lock in on my content. And I think that when school starts, it's going to be much more of like a past paper grind process. What I've been doing, I think the biggest thing that I wanted to say to you guys that really worked for me was like figuring out what you need to do early. And I'm talking about this in the micro scheme of things, and also like looking at the bigger picture. Like for example, I guess the bigger picture first of all is the subjects that you have. Like a really big thing of why IGCSE is so challenging is because there's such a large volume of subjects. And so it's really important that you lock down on which subjects are you the most comfortable in at the moment. And that's why mocks will really help you. For example, in my languages, I got A stars, and so I really am barely touching those subjects, even though maybe I should. But right now I'm focusing on improving the grades that I wasn't too satisfied with. For example, in like biology or chemistry. And in a more micro way, I think that means like having a clear to-do list for every single day of the break, and also going into like back to school, because I think the reason why I used to be so unproductive was because I had no idea. Like, I didn't have a clear understanding of what I was going to do each day. And so a lot of time was spent wondering what I would do or like making the decision. But now I just have so much time to actually do stuff because I already know what I'm going to do. So right now I have around 3 checklists, 3 to 4 per day. So I really want to get good math grades. So I'm doing that like every single day. So like one study block would be around 1.5 hours. So I would do a past paper in math. And then, for example, today I did 1.5 hours of history and 1.5 hours of economics. And then after I'm done with that, I would spend my time doing art. So you can see how structured it is and how easy it is to like go with your day. Another thing I really recommend is figuring out what your weakest points are. And the best way to do that is to look at the spec and read through it and make notes or flashcards on the things that you kind of like forgot existed in the spec. That was definitely a huge part of my revision, especially for like science topics or even economics. For subjects like history, I definitely recommend making a timeline. So, okay, what I literally did was I would glue 3 pieces of A4 paper together, like make it landscape and then glue them together to make one long piece of paper and just divide that up into like decades or whatever, and then put the key information of each event that you need to know on there. I think that's definitely very important. But now moving on to things that didn't work as well. Like I just said, I did a timeline, but here's the thing. Once you're done with that timeline, it's actually quite passive, even though I kind of had a better understanding of the chronology of it and how events kind of like led and how they all fit in the puzzle. I didn't really remember the stats, and it helped that I would write them in a different color, but I think it's important to do something more active with it. For example, I just started doing flashcards for the main statistics, and it's a lot of stuff to remember, but I think it's just getting that repetition in, doing the flashcards, like actually recalling the information as much as you can. And okay, this is what I did for the mocks, which is kind of like, honestly, it was kind of bad, and you need to gamble a little bit on which topics you really memorize, but I would write down the statistics. So it would be like a long list of statistics or dates, and then I would recite them and literally walk around the house repeating it. So I would like cover it with a piece of paper and try to recite it as much as I can, and literally just repeat that until I memorized it like a song. And when you're doing this, like, think about all the times when you like know the lyrics of a song by heart, or you remember all the characters of a show. Like, it's not impossible, guys. The mental side of it is so important as well. I guess another thing that I think hasn't been working as well is that I haven't been that focused on my time management and exam technique. But I think that's fine, because I will, closer to the exam, I will definitely run through a lot more past papers and familiarize myself with the mark scheme more. But I'm just saying, like sometimes you know the answer to things, especially in science subjects, but you don't know what the mark scheme wants you to say. Similarly, for writing subjects, I think it's really important for you to learn how little, like what the minimum is that you have to write in order to get most of the marks, because the time pressure is real. And the more times you can get yourself to be in that environment where, there's like a running clock and you have to sit with the whole paper and you have to organize that time by yourself, I think the better, so that you don't get stressed out in the exam. You know where you have to focus on first. Like, that's another thing. In economics and history and just writing subjects in general. Oops. I think I'm gonna die in this house. In writing subjects, definitely do the longer mark questions first, so that you don't get like the fatigue and you don't rush the answers that contribute the most to your scores. But here's the thing, like, for some reason, right, I always do them first, but my teacher is still like, yeah, it seems like you rushed the questions in the back. And I'm like, but I literally did them first. So that's probably a skill issue, but we can work on that later. Another thing that I want to recommend to you guys is to encourage some sort of healthy competition with your friends. I really recommend the app called YPT. Basically, you can make groups with your friends and you see how many hours they work, and it's really good to record your own statistics as well. But I think having some friendly competition is really, really good for your revision, because sometimes you can kind of keep going even though you're tired, and if you're just studying alone, you're much more likely to give in to that feeling of like wanting to rest. Whereas if someone else is like also revising and is at similar hours to you, you're kind of more likely to push through despite your tiredness, if it means winning. And it also blocks like your other apps when you're studying. So I know that's good for a lot of people who kind of have trouble not getting distracted by their social media apps or whatever. I think the same thing goes with like having a work focus. So I literally the entire break, my phone has always been in work focus, and in that focus I block all notifications from like social media apps. Of course, I just want to end with the fact that revision only works if you're resting and actually giving your brain the chance to process the information and really get it to stick. I also recommend doing some sort of exercise just to give your brain a break and also give your body some stimulation. And remember, IGCSE revision is a marathon, not a race. So yeah, don't burn yourself out 2 weeks before exams, okay? Let's plan this carefully, plan this holistically and realistically. Until next time, keep trying your best because that is more than enough. And I'll see you in the next video.